Welcome to Almost Serious Devs. Today we're operating a new Flutter project. This project is fed with numbers of quotes and the autos, and the code changes anytime you press the blue button below. At this point, if you've been coding since this video is not fair. Here is our default coding setup. So we create a class that extends stateless widget so we can inherit some properties of stateless widget in the new class created. The convention for creating a class in Flutter is to declare the class it as a class, then we'll follow it by the class name, which in our case is called home screen, which extends a stateless widget, then parentheses and the constructor for the class. Also will override the build function. The build runs anytime you run the program. And so a scaffold is returned. Scaffold represents the entire sprint layout. Scaffold is one of the most important widgets, and without scaffold, other widgets don't know where to render on the screen. On the right side is the UI of what we're designing. This serves as a guide altogether. One property of scaffold is app bar. Using that makes designing the top part is easy. App bar takes an app bar. If you click on it, VS Code provides this autocomplete feature you can employ. It takes a title. This title takes a widget, and we can use any widget. In our case, we'll be using a text widget. The text widget takes a text, right? A string text. We can also customize this text to our taste by using a property called style. This style takes a text style. Always take cognizance of this lazily visible text after a bracket or parenthesis, any closing. The int you on where a particular feature ends. The first background color is for the upper and the second is for the scaffold, which represent the entire screen color. When you run the program, you would agree with me that nothing from our final color compost is visible. First off, we have to get rid of the red banner slant on top of the screen. So we get rid of it by setting debug show checked mode banner to false. It is a default property of material app, which you must manually disable in case you do not find it desirable. We ought reload by pressing R on the keyboard. The banner's gone in the wind. Now let's understand why nothing else is showing on the screen. From learning Dart, we know that the principal entry point for any code is void main. Now notice the ascension. In the void main, what was passed in was my app class, which returns a material app. This program can't be bothered by our fine line of code unless we link it with the material app so it gets executed together, and rightly so. Everything will show up nicely on the screen. Next up is we design the body of scaffold. If you notice from our blueprint, there are numbers of widgets arranged vertically top to bottom. That's why our body will take a colon. A colon is a parent widget that can take as many widgets as you want and enforce them all an unbounded eye. We'll talk about possible errors in our future videos. The first thing here is a text widget, and after typing the text in it, we realize it shows up at the right below the app bar, so we need to space it a little. by using sized box. Sized box is a widget that gives an empty boxes to create space between widgets. So after setting the height, we realize it's moved down a little bit. So we also need to centralize it by using the refactoring option in VS Code. To get this special feature, you use Ctrl+Shift+R, so we wrap the column in the center, and when you alt reload by pressing R on the keyboard, everything centralizes perfectly. We do the same dance for author name below. These texts are just temporary placeholders. We automate them later in the video. The next thing is the elevated button, which changes the code when pressed. It has two required parameters, a child and an unpressed property. A child takes a widget, and unpressed in the most standard form takes a function. This is the default button. We'll design it a bit. Okay, this entire pseudo productive exercise is to create a definite size across different platforms. So I'm testing those values. Feel free to experiment those values. Then I'll wrap it with a padding for breathing space. done with the UI, let's do the logic part. The first thing is we'll change the widget from stateless widget to stateful widget so the UI can change when it's reviewed. Second thing is you create a global class outside the home screen. You can avoid doing that totally and just create a raw list, but we love making things lighter around here. In the state, we'll create a list of the class created above. Basically, we're just creating numbers of objects of the class and store them in the new list. I've previously copied the code and others, so I'll just paste it directly. I use the different class names. I'm just fixing it in here. Now we'll create a variable to save the selected code. It's called selected code. We'll mark it as late. This is to inform the program that we will set a value before use. Then we also override the initState. This is a default text generator. Without doing this or a similar alternative, the program will inevitably crash because selected code is used in the text widget, which was not created unless the button is pressed. So setting a default value for when the button is not or never pressed is handy. It solves the problem. I failed to mention some crucial stuff because I assume you learned them in that. If there is a gray area, feel free to ask in the comment section. Progressively, we'll create a function for our ElevatedButton, and this is the most interesting part. For this, we'll use a dart extension called random. Then we'll create a variable which takes random. Now we get an error because we need to import the dart extension called dart math. This random just generates random number within a given range. Next, we'll create another variable called index to give a range between the length of the list of the code class. We append code index to our selected code. It means that selected code is just the code at the position of any random number chosen by the index. Then we'll pass function to the elevated button. You notice that we got rid of the parentheses, so it only gets called when the button is pressed. Finally, we will go back to our text widget. Okay, to change the text into an automated one by passing into the text widget the selected code using string interpolation for our double quotes. This double quotation is added to every code by default. It conserves energy more than passing it independently to all codes in the list. You know, if you can choose, lazy programmers are the best programmers out there because they optimize code and they save their energy by automating tasks rather than a reckless repetition. So we interpolate the author's name for the second text widget and we should be done. Not quite. We realize that when we click the button, nothing changes because there is a missing set state. Without set state, the selected code just changes in the memory and it's not visible. So affixing a set state solves our big problem and everything works like we have anticipated. So we're done. Thank you for watching.